Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and begin here. So we are going to play around with some lists today, and you can do a lot with lists. I know a lot of you guys have already used them some in class, and I actually introduced them a long time ago, but we're going to really formalize it now and start to show you all the things you can do with them, and it's a huge amount. Ultimately, when we get into coding for like pixel graphics and stuff, lists are going to come in really, really helpful because we can essentially use list as our grid and we can sort of put a list in a list and have it do lots of different things. But we'll get there, okay? For now, let's talk about why lists are really helpful. Number one, lists are flexible, okay? So we're going to play around. We're going to write a couple of little lists here. And we're going to start like this. So we can make a list that consists of strings. So I'm going to call this string list. Now I'm using the camel, you know, the capital letters here, but you don't have to. You can make it one word if you want to. All right, the way we, because of the humps, yeah, it sort of separates out the words so they don't get too confused here. All right, guys, the way we assign a list is we use square brackets. The nice thing is on the keyboard, you don't have to hit shift for square brackets. You just hit the little square bracket there, okay? Now, anything I put within these square brackets is going to be assigned to this list called string list, okay? So I am going to use the characters from inside out. So I'm going to say joy, anger, who was a great character in that movie, by the way, sadness, okay, disgust, and the other one was fear, okay? All right, so I'm going to end that with a square bracket, and you'll notice that it kind of highlights it there for me, saying, yep, in fact, I do have a list. Now, since this is a string list, notice I put everything in quotes in there, right? That's going to sort of automatically make that a string, okay? So there's a list. Right now, I could do something with it if I want to. I could just have it stored. I could actually use it as part of a for loop, you know, for x in string list, and then it would go through the loop 5 times because there's 5 items in there. There's a lot of different things I could do with it. One of the things I could do with it is just go ahead and say, hey, print, right? So if I say print string list, okay, and I run that, this is what we're going to see. We're going to just see the list there. There it is. Joy, anger, sadness, disgust, fear. Okay? So pretty simple. Okay. Now, we're going to keep using this list throughout, but I want to make a couple more here just to show you we could have a number list, right? If we wanted to be using integers or even floats for that matter. So just put in some random numbers here, guys. Pick at least 5 different things just to keep it the 5 theme. So I'm going to go with 42 since that's you know, pretty common. How about 27? That's a good year. Enjoy your year 27. I just feel like there's a lot going on that year, and nobody ever talks about it. Everyone talks about 18. Everyone talks about 21. Big whoop, right? But 27 is pretty awesome, right? 88, because that's how many keys there are on a keyboard. 4, because that's how many toes I have on my left foot. And 15, another good year. All right. Anyway. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. There you go. There you go. So if I want to, guys, I can go ahead and say, hey, print my number list here too. So I'm going to say number list, print that out. I can go ahead and run it. And notice that now I have joy, anger, sadness, disgust, fear, 42, 27, 88, 4, and 15. All right. And no particular order there. And I also want you guys to know that the beauty of list is they don't really care what's in there. Yeah, the Python doesn't care. If there's something there, then great, we can do something with it. So for example, I can make a mixed list. So I'm going to just call it mixed list. And I can put things in there like a string, like bears. I could put an integer like 3, and I could put something else if I wanted to. I'm going to put Goldilocks. Goldilocks. How do I spell it? I think that's it. Okay. So there, I'm just going to make a shorter list in this case. But note that it does not matter that I have an integer here. It doesn't matter that I've got a string. I could include some floats in there. It really just Python doesn't care. That's one of the beauties, right? So I'm going to just put that in there and say print mixed list. Okay. And we're going to start using these lists a bit in the future. And if I run that, there you can see my new list as well. Okay, this is what I like about the list is that Python does not get upset whenever we just sort of put random stuff in there. All right, now just to make it nice and clean on our shell over there, guys, I'm going to put a double quotes in there just to give a space between things that we're going to do here. Okay, now that we have our list, what I want to do is I want to show you that we can combine lists together. So I'm going to say lists can be combined, but specifically what I mean here is the terminology we really want to put is sublisting. Okay, so we can put a list within a list. It's not a problem. Actually, we can just do that pretty much as we want to. We can put a list and a list and a list and a list. And I'm going to show you how we can do that in a couple of ways. Okay, so I'm going to create a new list now called master list, right? And this would be really brutal if you had a list and you were trying to talk about lists. We could make a list of all things that are really hard to say for people with lists. All right. Yeah. Yes. All right, guys, so let me show you this master list now. Are you ready? I'm going to use a square bracket. And within there, I'm actually going to list these lists that I already created. So I'm going to say string list, separated by a comma, number list, separated by a comma, mixed list, and then I'm going to end that square bracket. And so what that is going to do is it is going to make a list of all of these lists. Okay? So go ahead, then once you've got that in there, go ahead and print master list and see what you get. Okay? Whoa. All right, guys. So if you, hey guys, no, if you see what we got up there, notice what it did is it actually, when I said print master list, it took all of those lists and it printed them out, each one as a separate list. Joy, anger, sadness, disgust, fear, 42, 27, 88, 4, and so on. Okay, it did not make them one list. It's still a list of 3 different lists, which is kind of handy and nice. Okay, you can do this without even saying, like putting list in there. For example, I could do another, here, I'm going to call this Grimm list, okay, Grimm for the Brothers Grimm. And I'm going to basically take that mixed list, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I'm going to add some other sort of Grimm fairy tale components to it. So I am going to, this time, put the word porridge in there. I'm going to put too hot as a string. And I'm going to put just right as one of the things, a string in my list. And then I'm going to add just mixed list to it, okay? And so that is going to give me a list that consists of 4 items: porridge, too hot, just right, and mixed list. Mixed list itself consisting of 3 items: bears, 3 Goldilocks, okay? So if I print the Grimm list, I should be able to see all of it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and print that. And there we go. So I've got, I'm going to have to move my shell here a bit so you guys can see it. So there it is. Porridge, too hot, just right. Bears, 3 Goldilocks. Okay. So I can take a list, throw it in my list. All the things in the list don't have to be lists. They can just be new items in the list. Okay. So that's a lot. It's a lot of listing, right? There's a lot going on. All right. Just for cleanliness here, I'm going to put the double quotes in there so we can go on to our next little thing. Okay. Okay. A very, very handy thing that you guys are going to see, especially when we get into graphics, is determining list length. And the nice thing is you guys have worked with this before because it's identical to how we determine the list of like the length of a string. Okay. So for example, I'm going to say print. That way we can see it printed out. LEN for the length. And I want to know how many items are in string list, that list we created up here. Okay. Joy, anger, sadness, disgust, fear. Okay. So what this is going to tell me, I'm going to tab over here and put this hashtag in there. It will tell me that there are 5 items in the list. And I forgot to finish off this with the second. There we go. Okay, so I got 5 items in my list. If I run that, we can actually see the number 5 right here in the shell, indicating that yes, there were 5 items in the string list. Okay. Now, what if, guys, I determine the length of something like, say, master list? Because note, it has 3 different lists in it. Is it going to count up all of the items in each of those lists, or is it just going to count up the number of items in the list, which is 3? What do you guys think? So if I say print the length of master list, what will I get out of it? So go ahead and run it and see what you get. What does it give you? 3. All right. So what we want to put in here, then I'm going to put another little hashtag in here. Okay. I'm going to say note, it only counts the number of lists in the list. All right. I'm saying it only counts the number of lists in the list. Okay. What about something like grimlist? Because grimlist consists of list elements, forage, too hot, just right, and mixed list. So if I say, what about the length of grimlist? I love that name. What's going to happen if we run that? We'll see that it gives me 4, right? So if I look at it, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Mixed list is the 4th item. So to sort of tell you what's going on here, I'm going to say there are 3 items in a list. They're known as elements, by the way, plus the list equals 4. Okay, so 4 things in there. And I'm going to just keep it clean by adding a little space there as well. So again, if I run that, we can see everything we've done so far. 5, 3, 4. Okay. So determining list length can be quite helpful, especially if you are using list in loops. It's going to be really, really helpful to be able to, I'm stuck on my cord here. It's going to be really helpful to know the length of your list, okay? Especially if it's one that you're going to be adding to, right? Or deleting things from. We'll get to that later. Right now, it's actually not all that important, but we'll be able to do that. Okay, next, what if we want to select an item out of the list? Selecting items from a list. Okay, let's just operate in, yeah, we're just going to keep using these lists we created up here, guys. String list, numbers list, mixed list, master list, and grim list. Okay, so we're just going to use those throughout here. So we can select an item from a list by calling its position in the list. Okay, now remember, we always start, the first item is always 0, right? So this joy would be 0, anger would be 1, sadness would be 2, disgust would be 3, and fear would be 4. Okay, so if I want to pull something out of that list, say I want to specifically pull out something like sadness, I would say print, in this case, string list, okay, because that's the list it's in, and it is 0, 1, it's number 2. So in a square bracket, I'm going to put 2, close that square bracket, in the parenthesis, okay, and if I run that, I should get sadness, and that's exactly what I did. So I was able to pull out that very specific thing from the list. That's going to come in handy when you guys are doing your top 10 thing, right? When I say, hey, I want it to be searchable. I want your top 10 movies or TV shows or characters or whatever, books, right? And I want the user to be able to say, what's your number 3, right? What's your 3rd favorite? And then you'll be able to pull something out by using that right there, okay? Now, you might not put a 2. You might have the user input variable or something like that in there, right? That way it automatically goes to whatever the user inputs into it, okay? I can also do it another way. I can actually do it in reverse, okay? So for example, if I say, I don't know exactly where it's at in the list, but I know it's near the end, for example, if I want to get sadness, I can use negative numbers and it'll go the opposite direction. But the weird thing is when you go from the right, you don't start with 0. This would be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if I want sadness again, I'm going to have to go with -3. So if I say string list, square bracket, -3, square bracket, in parentheses, and I run that, it pulls up sadness again, sadness and sadness. So I can search from the left, which is sort of the default, or I can search from the right, okay? So I'm going to specify that in here with a hashtag. I'm going to say negative selects from the right side of the list, okay? I can even do that, guys, if I have a list of lists, like my master list here. I can do the same thing. So if I want to select a specific list out of the master list, say I really like my number list, this would be 0, this would be 1, that would be 2. So I can say master list, square bracket, number 1, say I want that number list. And if I run that, it actually pulls out that specific list I was looking for in that case, right? So the one space in my master list, string list would be your 0 location, number list would be 1, mixed list would be 2. I requested the first or the number 1 position in the master list, and it is this list right here, 42, 27, 88, 415, right? Even though when I look at the number list or the master list, it says number list there, but it actually pulls that number list out when I request that specific spot, okay? I can do the same thing, like say I want the Grim list, but I want the very end. I want this mixed list out of it. I could do that. I could say Grim list, and if I call that the -1 position, it'll pull it out from the right side instead of the left. And there we go. Bears 3 Goldilocks is what I pulled out of the Grim list. All right. So that's how I can just pull a specific item out of the list. Okay. What if I want to check for the presence of something in the list? I can do that too. Okay. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to move this up a bit. Okay. So what if I'm Santa Claus and I'm checking a list, right? I'm making a list. I'm checking it twice. So I could make a naughty list, right? And a nice list if I wanted to. Fill up the naughty list with everybody on that side of the room. Nice list over here. Don't pretend like you don't know what list you're on. All right. Now, note, guys, something I want to mention to you guys is that I'm using the print function a lot here. You don't have to use the print function. I'm just doing it so we get something to display in our shell, right? But that could be embedded in lots of other different ways. I'm just using like the length feature. I could use that in a loop. Okay, I wouldn't have to say print it out every time. I'm just doing that purely so you guys can see what's going on. Same thing for what I'm going to show you now. So in checking a list, we're going to essentially use a Boolean function in this case. Okay, so let's say on my mixed list up here, notice that I've got 3 things in there: Bears, 3, and Goldilocks. Let's say if I wanted to check for a number in there, I could do this. I could say print, and then I'm going to say in quote or in parentheses here, 3 in mixed list. Okay. So what that's going to do, guys, is that's automatically turning Boolean. When you guys type in there, you should notice that it probably turned orange. It's difficult to tell up on my board here, okay? And when you do that, what it's saying is it's going to check, is this true or false? Is the integer 3 in the list called mixed list? In this case, it is, right? If we look at the list, it goes Bears, 3, Goldilocks. So if I hit and run this, it's going to give me, oh, wait. It says mixed list is not defined because guess what? I didn't capitalize my L. Let's do this, fix it again. Okay, there it is, true. I'm going to retroactively go back and put a space in here, by the way. Okay, so if I run that, there we go, that's better. So it is true. So I could use Boolean to check, was 3 in the mixed list? The answer was yes, right? I could check another thing. I could check one of my other lists. So for example, I could check, is the string happiness in my string list? Okay. And if I run that, it says false. In other words, it's not in there, right? But I can also check to see if something is not in a list using the not in function. So for example, if I want to check, is the word or the string wolf not in my Grim list? Okay. So what I'm saying is wolf not in there? Does it not contain wolf, right? And in that case, it'll print back true. it's true. Wolf is not in Grim list. Okay. So that's how I can check a list in a fairly simple way. That'll come in real handy, guys, anytime you're dealing with Boolean, especially if you're making a game where you're going to be determining sort of what direction a game will go based on perhaps points or a number of items that you have in your backpack or something of that nature. Do you have enough bullets to shoot that guy? Yes or no? True. Yes. Yeah. So that's how we can start to use those things. Okay. All right. I know I'm having you guys do quite a few things here, but that's because they're all pretty simple, right? All right, now I'm going to say, what if I want to take two lists and I actually want to combine them together into one list? I don't want a list of lists. I want to make a new list that takes all of the other lists and combines them into just one list, not a list of lists. Oh, I can't say list too much more. All right, so here we go. So what I want to say here is we're going to label this combine list into a single list. It's actually ridiculously easy to do, okay? Here's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a list called one list to rule them all, right? One list. All right. So what I'm going to do here is note, guys, what I am not going to do is I'm not going to put brackets in there because that would essentially be saying, oh, here, make a new list of lists. I don't want that. Okay. I'm going to use parentheses, not a 9, okay? And what I want to do is I want to take my string list, okay, and I want to add the mixed list to it. Okay, and then I'm going to end my parentheses there, okay? So what it's going to do is it's going to go up, it's going to access string list, which is joy, anger, sadness, disgust, fear, and then it's going to add that into one list along with mixed list, so it's going to grab that, bears, 3, and Goldilocks, okay? And it's going to make a new list with those things. So to prove that, let's go ahead and print one list to bind them in the darkness, right? And then I can go ahead and hit F5, run that thing, and I did it again. What did I do? Print. Oh, there it is, string list. I didn't capitalize my L. There, try it again. There we go. So now if I take a look at my list here, notice it is in one set of square brackets. It took all of those things and it just hemmed them together, right? This list now consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items. I could actually test that by saying print the length of one list, and now it's a list of 8 items instead of a list of 2 things. Yeah. Absolutely. DEL can delete items from a list. So just as we selected items from a list up here, we can actually delete items from a list, and we can add items to the list as well. That's the beauty of lists, is they are like super flexible, which is why they're kind of nice to work with. Okay. All right. So there's that. And to tidy it up, and that's actually what I'll show you guys tomorrow, how to do that. All right. We can also even play around with lists by like repeating them. And that's a super simple thing to do. Okay, let's take a list that we like. What list do you guys like? What do you prefer that we've created so far? String list? Okay, let's do string list. It's easy to look at, okay? So here's what I want to do. What if I want to see string list, but I'd like to see it like 4 times, right? We can do that. I can say print string list. I can use my star times 4, okay? And it will literally print that list out 4 times, okay? And you can run that to double check that that's exactly what will happen, and there it is. Joy, anger, sadness, disgust, fear, joy, anger, sadness, disgust, fear, joy. See, there it is. It just made a huge list, right, of the same thing over and over again. I don't know exactly why you would necessarily want to do that, but you can. So I think that's enough reason for a lot of people to do things. It's like, well, I could, right? All right, last thing, guys, is this will come in pretty handy as well. What if I want to select more than one item out of the list at a time? I want to take a section of the list. You can do that by slicing list, okay? So let's take a look at how we do that. And I'm going to show you 3 different ways we can take slices out of things, and then it'll be exactly time to go, right? All right, so here we go. Again, I'm going to use the print function just so we can see something actually come out. So I'm going to take that string list we've been working with, and I want to select out not joy. I don't want the whole list. I don't want to just pick out sadness. Say I want to have, what was it? Sadness and disgust. Right, let's do it. So which number? Let's go look at the list here. So this is 0, 1. This is number 2, number 3, and fear is number 4. So here's what I'm going to do. If I want just sadness and disgust, I'm going to take a slice out. So I'm going to use a square bracket. And what was it? Number 3? Is that the one I wanted? No, I wanted number 2. Sadness is 2. So I'm going to put 2. I'm going to put a colon in there. And here's the weird thing is I'm going to put number 4. I'm not going to put number 3. I'm going to actually slice it out from number 2 to number 4, but it doesn't count number 4. Okay, so that means I'm going to be able to slice out items number 2 and 3 out of the list, or elements number 2 and 3 officially is the way we should say it. Okay, so now if I run that, let's take a look. There it is, sadness and disgust. Those are the 2 things I pulled out using that. So that's one of the tricky things. If I wanted the first 2, I would need to put 0 to 2. Okay, 0 and 2, and then it would select out items number 0 and 1. Okay, and there's no length that matters here. However many items in the list are what you're going to use. Okay, I can also say, what if I want everything in the beginning of the list up to, say, number 5 or number 4 or something like that? I can do that as well. So if I say print string list, and now I'm going to use my square brackets. I'm going to put nothing. I'm just going to put colon and number 4. And what that will do is it'll select out from the beginning up to number 4. Okay, so I'm going to actually write that in here. From beginning to 4. So if I run that, now I get joy, anger, sadness, disgust. It does not include fear, which is actually item number 4, right? Because it just goes from the beginning. By putting nothing in here, it automatically assumes we're going from the beginning of the list. Okay? I can do the same thing. I can go just grab the end of the list, okay, by doing the following. I can say print string list. This time, I'm not going to leave it blank. I'm going to say, hey, let's go from item number 2 and then put nothing, and that means go from item number 2 to the end. Okay? So I'm going to put from 2 to the end of the list. Okay? And if I run that, what did I do? Did I have something in there I didn't see? Try this again. Yeah. Boop. I didn't. There it is. So if I run that, there we go. Instead of, I kick out joy and anger, and I just go from number 2, which is sadness, to the end. Sadness, disgust, fear. So that's pretty helpful when you don't know the length of a list, right? If you don't I don't know how many items are in there, but I know I need everything from this point on, then you can use that. You do not have to include that in there. And maybe just for clarity, I'm going to go put one more hashtag. I'm going to say prints list elements 1 and 2, or no, sorry, elements 2 and 3, not 4. Okay. All right. So that's all your list stuff for today.